of you on Watershed, it's just kind of a work session. We don't have to have a roll call really, but we thought we'd do one just for the sake of it. So, Tom, do you want to start, or you want us to start?
Why don't you guys go ahead if all
Thanks.
Your commissioners are there.
All right, I'll just quickly see who here. Emily Creeley, she was not able to attend. Tomash, are you with us today?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Tomash in the house. Holly, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
See you, okay. And David Nyman, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, dream team from the Watershed Commission. Thanks, everybody. Back to you, Tom.
Okay, for the Geotechnical Advisory Commission, I do not yet see Dennis Berry. Dennis Berry, are you here? See if he shows up. Kyle Brennan.
I am here.
All right. Stephen Halcomb.
I'm here.
All right. David Hemstreet. See him yet. Cody Creedell's excused. Tom Krasinski.
I'm here.
All right. Carrie Nutter.
Present.
Amy Steiner.
Present.
And John Thornley.
I'm here.
Okay. So we have a quorum. All right, Lynn, I guess this is your training now, so would you take it away? Oh, you might be on mute.
It would be helpful if I took myself off mute, huh? Well, thank you everyone so much for joining me. Hopefully it'll let me share my screen. Right, are you seeing a PowerPoint? Can I just get a thumbs up from someone? That it's awesome, thank you. 3 thumbs up, that's great. So I'm going to give an introduction to myself, and then I would like just a brief introduction from all of you so I can get a feel for where we're going with the training. But basically, this is going to be an advisory commission effective meeting basics, and it's going to be more general, not specific to your specific commissions, but I will give just a little information about that as well. Go to the next slide. Just to introduce myself, my name is Lynn Kenealy. I'm a local government specialist with the state of Alaska. We are within the Department of Commerce, Community Economic Development within the Division of Community and Regional Affairs. And we provide a ton of services within our division. A lot of these sections are actually only like 1 or 2 person sections. Some of them are much larger. If any of these areas look interesting to you, if you want to know more about them, please give me a call sometime and I'd be happy to get you more information. My contact information will be at the end. I actually supervise both the local government assistance and the RUBA programs. RUBA is for much smaller rural communities, but the local government assistance piece, basically, we provide, every community in Alaska is assigned to a local government specialist who can help out with things like this, like providing this training, and also providing just a slew of other assistance. I am actually Anchorage's local government specialist. So anytime you have questions about anything that I'm going to show you or other local government meeting kind of questions, you can feel free to contact me. So that is DCRA, and I was hoping I could get kind of a preview from all of you, and I can kind of call you off by name. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. I actually only see a lot of your last names, but I'd like to know, what's your name? What made you decide to become a commission member? Which advisory commission are you with? And how long have you been on it? And then if you have an idea of what you'd like to get out of the training today, that would be helpful as well. I know we only have an hour and a half, so not too long, but it would be great to hear from everyone. And just for ease of this, I'll just go ahead and call on each of you. So Holly Kent.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so my name obviously is Holly Kent. I decided to become a commission member in like the early 2000s. I can't remember exactly when. And I'm on the Watershed and Natural Resource Commission. And the reason I decided to join the commission was, at the time, I was the executive director of the Anchorage Waterways Council. And so as such, I have some background and experience in watershed science. And actually that was the Waterways Council, myself on the Waterways Council and a group of other people were the ones who got the Watershed and Natural Resource Commission restarted. It had existed but not been active for a number of years, and maybe under a slightly different name. So in a way, I guess you could say I was a founding member of the commission as it exists today. And basically what I'd like to get from today is just a basic idea of how the flow of information and so forth, how the commission, should be working. I'm not sure I ever received an initial training. I have been on them for a long time, but we have some new commission members, and I wanted to be able to be sure about how things worked so that I could counsel them.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Let's see, David Nyman.
Hi, I'm David, and I'm a professional engineer with Restoration Science and Engineering. I'm a civil and environmental engineer. And of course, I got involved in the commission 4 or 5 years or more ago, mostly just to have community involvement and, just be involved in and learn more about the community as we move forward. I just hope to learn something through this training about the proper functioning of the commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Tomasz Deek. I hope I'm saying
Yes,
that
hi
right.
everybody. Tomasz Dayak. I'm a local designer in architecture, landscape architecture, work for a private firm, KPB Architects. I have been a commissioner for a very long time, started with planning board. This particular commission, Watershed Natural Resources, is one where I've been on since that, I guess it was a restart. I remember when it was in, I think it was 2008 is when it was restarted. I was asked to be part of it as a environmental design focused design type person, and also some of the experience of commissions, being on commissions. The reason why anybody, I think, should be on a commission is that if you can contribute, then you should. And that's, I almost, it's I consider it a professional duty. We are registered professionals. We have something to add to the dialogue. I think that's why we are generally on a commission. So that is my background. The interest in training is always that you never can stop learning. So if you keep repeating things, maybe just remember them better. But at this time, I think we have some work to do to get our numbers back to full. So we don't have vacancies, and the new members will then catch up for doing the work which we have been doing, and some of us will, of course, expire after a while. So that's my goal for today. Thank you for having me.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. Let's see, I have Susan Perry. Susan, are you with the staff at Anchorage? Is that right?
Yes, Sue is with staff, and she helps keeps the commissions moving behind the scenes.
That's why I see your name on all of these invitations. Yes, thank you so much.
Sometimes I attend, sometimes I don't, but my name's always out there.
Well, thank you very much. I'll probably be referencing you and the other staff throughout the training here.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Let's see, Kyle Brennan.
Hello. Let me see. I'll grace you all my image. I'm a geotechnical engineer in Anchorage. I've been working in town for about 22 years. I've been on the commission, on the Geotechnical Advisory Commission for about 12 or so of those years. The reason why I got onto the commission or wanted to be on the commission originally was back at, and still to this day, we do a lot of work for the municipality, for private clients as well as directly for the municipality, and had a lot of interaction with the GAC prior to being on the commission, and really appreciated the work that they did, and thought it would be a great way for me to give back and contribute to the municipality and the public and the decision makers. So that's why I joined, and I think like many of the commission members, I never received any training or anything like that to know how a commission works properly. And you know, we get, you know, thrown in and asked to do the job, and we learn as a trial by fire method, and I think that works. But if we can have some guidance on how things should operate and run smoothly, I think that would be very beneficial.
Great. All right. Thank you. We'll try. Let's see. We have John Thornley.
Yes, so John Thornley, Chair of the Geotechnical Advisory Commission. I've been on since 2009, and you know, community service. You know, similar comments to people before me as far as why I'm on the commission. And then it's been pointed out to me in the past that the Geotech Advisory Commission doesn't always follow the rules for commissions on, you know, order of business and that. So I'm very interested in you know, things that I can pick up and improve the operations of the GAC. So thanks.
Sure. I'm just writing down notes every now and then. That's
You bet.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see. Thomas Krasinski.
Hello. I was putting on my microphone and my camera. Tom Krasinski. I'm with Golder and Associates in Anchorage. I've been on the commission since 2004, 2005, somewhere in that neighborhood. Never had any advisory commission training. Looking forward to it. I think we do a fairly good job at the Geotechnical Advisory Commission, but we could always use some formal training on what we're supposed to be doing. Golder does a lot of work for the municipality, as does Shannon and Wilson. So we have that commonality, and we've traditionally had somebody on the commission just because we're interested in shaping where the MOA heads with some of their geotechnical work. Thanks.
All right, thank you. How about Amy Steiner?
I'll join the flip on the camera club, I guess. I'm Amy Steiner. I'm with P&D Engineers. I'm one of the senior geotechs over there. I'm on the Geotechnical Advisory Commission. Yeah, sort of similar motives as everybody else, as far as why, you know, I am on the commission, and, you know, what I'm hoping for getting out of the training, just as far as we do work. My company does work in the muni, and, you know, anything to stay abreast of current regulations and, you know, make sure that what's coming out of the geotechnical engineering community is consistent as good for me. Yeah, and as far as, you know, to get out of today, yeah, make sure we're checking the boxes that we're supposed to check on this. I've only been on the commission since November, so I'm new and know nothing.
Okay. I'm sure you don't know nothing, but so we have a really broad range of experience here. That's actually really helpful on a commission. It's really great to have new people and also to have that experience. So, Ross?
Yeah, I'm MOA staff.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. Wayne Bullen?
Also MOA staff.
All right, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Cody?
Yeah, hi, I'm Cody Kreidel. I'm a geotechnical engineer on the GAC as well. I'm with ReSpec, formerly known as PDC Engineers. I joined about the same time as Amy. Early in my career, my mentor was a member of the GAC, and I always respected what he did there. I attended a couple of meetings with him, Keith Mobley, and he encouraged me to sign up, and so I did. I thought it was, you know, a good way to give back to the community and be involved and know what's going on. And like Amy, you know, I'm brand new at being on the commission, so I'm just ready to soak it all in today.
All right, thank you. Let's see, I have Carrie Nutter.
Hi, yes, I'm Carrie Nutter. I am an engineering geologist on the Geotechnical Advisory Commission. I work at Dowell and I've been here for almost 18 years. I've only been on the commission for about a year now. I was also encouraged by one of my mentors that previously served on the commission. And, you know, I got on the commission because giving back to the community and, you know, participating in the geotechnical community in town with the municipality, as Amy mentioned, you know, best practices amongst our profession, you know, and what I'd really like to get out of today is understanding, you know, what the best practices are as commissioners and, you know, making sure that we are doing our role, doing it right and well.
All right, great, thank you. I hope I cover all that, but if I don't, please, there will be some time at the end, I hope, for questions. I actually have two more people who I can't see on the screen. So if you could call on yourself maybe and introduce yourself, the two folks who haven't yet.
I haven't. This is Stephen Halcomb. I am on the GAC committee, and I basically echo everything Carrie just said in terms of time on the commission, reasons why, and the stuff we got to train today. So looking forward to it.
All right, great, thank you. And I feel like there's still one other person here. Is that Timothy?
Yeah, Mike. Yes, I'm MOA staff, but I'm new to, you know, I started in 2018, new to the area, and it's kind of a new position. It says geotechnical lab manager, mostly materials analysis, but I am a geotechnical engineer by experience. So I just basically been eavesdropping on the commission and what they're doing. It's a good way to figure out, you know, what all the issues are within the city. And I'm a semi unofficial liaison between the GAC and I'm in the project management engineering versus the others are down in development and planning. So anyway, yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you. Well, I hope we got everyone. I did take some notes. I hope the training is addressing the things you're all talking about. Thank you for those introductions. It does help me kind of know where to linger more and where to kind of pass over more quickly. Like I said, there should be, I do kind of have question mark slides throughout if people have questions specifically about the topic I've just covered. And we should have time at the end as well. So please don't be shy to ask questions. There's a feature on here to raise your hand, or, you know, again, once we get to those question mark points, you can just go ahead and speak up if you have something to say. I also can see when you take yourself off of mute, I can usually see you pop up. So that's another way to express to me that you have something you'd like to say. All right, so moving on. Get control of my screen here. So we will be, we already did introductions, but we will be discussing briefly commission duties and roles. We'll get into how to be effective, ethics and conflict of interest, and then open meetings and parliamentary procedure. I did hear less interest in ethics and conflict of interest, and I'll be honest, those are more boring slides anyway, but I do want to cover them just so it's something that's kind of in the back of your mind as we're moving along. And I'll kind of emphasize the other areas just based on what I've heard from you here, what the interest is. So I know you're not the Alaska Planning Commission, but we do have a Planning Commission handbook that's incredibly helpful for all commissions. It gives a lot of the information that I'm giving in this presentation you can find in that handbook. That is something I can email to you. I can also send you the link to the handbook online. If you don't have it already, just let me know. Again, my email address will be at the end of the presentation. But the presentation will periodically refer to the handbook. When it's doing that, it's saying, hey, there's more information in the handbook if you're looking for more. If you just want some good reading before bed. Other additional resources, my website, I am the local government resource desk, and on my website you will find a lot of kind of toolkits and cheat sheets and different things like that on all the topics that we're talking about. The planning and land use resource page also has a lot of helpful information. Again, I can send you those links. Just throw me an email and let me know, like, hey, what were those links? Okay. So getting into commission duties. Broadly, it is all commission duties, all elected officials, appointed officials' responsibility to serve the public and your community, to follow your municipal code and your regulations. And I'm going to cite your municipal code a little bit later. I wasn't able to find if you have separate regulations, but you'll talk to your staff about whether you have other handbooks or regulations that you also need to be following. It's your responsibility to participate in all issues that come before you and to consider all views, to focus on policy and not politics, to maintain civility and respect. And I will say from your introductions, I feel like you all probably do that very well. But not all elected bodies do, so I like to talk about that. Specifically, the Watershed and Natural Resources Advisory Council, it is your responsibility to understand the ordinance that established the commission. It sounds like you have some very established commission members who will understand a lot of these things already, but this is a link that will get you there. It is your responsibility to sustain economic and community benefits of healthy creeks, watersheds, and natural resource lands, to provide technical advice and guidance, to be a liaison, to make recommendations, to provide advice, and to submit reports. Now, of course, what reports those are exactly, again, that's something that's going to depend on what you have going on and something you're going to want to talk to the staff about. Then, just the same, the Geotechnical Advisory Commission, you also have a website that will give you this information. You give advice on geotechnical matters, including but not limited to the Anchorage Coastal Resources Map. You make recommendations, give advice, and make special studies. This is all straight out of municipal code. You'll have more specific directives that you'll want to talk to your staff about. So you do have an advisory role. It is your role to recommend. Some commissions also have a regulatory role. My understanding from reading about both of your commissions is that you do not have a directly regulatory role, but that advisory role is going to feed into those who do have a regulatory role, so it's very important. You also have a procedural role, and I've definitely heard from your introductions that a lot of you are aware that you have kind of procedural requirements. I really like to emphasize that it is actually your role to follow certain procedures, and that's really what a lot of this presentation is going to be about. So any questions about your roles? If you have questions about your specific commission, I'm probably not going to know the answers, but any questions broadly about a commission's role? Okay, I'll keep going. So how to be effective? First and foremost is to study, to prepare, to listen, and to contribute. And I really like to think about it in that order. First, you're going to study the matter. You're really going to prepare for the meeting or for the hearing or for the discussion. You're going to listen, and you're also going to contribute. You are all on these commissions for a very specific reason. It's because you have something to contribute. So it's really important that you do that. Specifically, come to all meetings, request and read your packets. We recommend that all meetings basically have some sort of a packet of information prior to the meeting that's going to have kind of the minutes and any documents that you're going to need to review before the meeting. Really recommend that you read the packets before the meeting. It saves a lot of time and it ensures that you are making the right decisions as you're moving forward. Know the meeting agenda before you come into the meeting. Know your community. Just hearing from you, it sounds like a lot of you do already know your community very well. Know your regulations and your procedures. And know your partners. Don't be single issue members. I didn't hear this from any of you, but some people will get onto a commission because they have one specific thing they're really excited about. That's fine. That's a great reason to get onto a commission. But from there, you really have to broaden it because now you have a whole host of things you're going to have to address. So it's very important not to be a single issue member. Understand that as a commission member, you have to cover all of these things. Debate, but don't fight. And that's important. Some people are like, oh, we can't have conflict. It is important actually to debate, to have those conversations. But of course, we're trying not to have fights. Know all sides of the issues and rely on facts and not opinions. Maintain good relationships with your staff. The staff are the people who are doing the work every day of preparing for these meetings, of preparing all the things that you need to have done. So it's really good to have a good relationship with those folks. Be familiar with your code and regulations. Share all the information that you have, and we're going to get into that a little bit later, how actually there are some legal responsibilities to share information, as well as just being effective. You're going to want to ask questions. Please don't be shy about asking when you don't know something. And do you have any questions right now about any of those topics? We're not getting into the hot goss yet. All right, moving on. So getting into ethics, and again, I know no one really asked about this, so I won't spend too much time on it, but the Alaska Ethics Act does apply to commission members for a municipality, and it prohibits public officials from using positions to secure employment or contracts, accept, receive, or solicit compensation, except from the city if the city is allowing that. Use city goods or for your own personal, political, or financial gain. Use city goods for partisan political purposes, accept gifts intended to influence actions and judgments, and improper use of or disclosure of information. We're going to get into that. Improper use of information really kind of more relates to executive sessions, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So that's the Alaska Ethics Act. Just be aware that you are responsible for that this does relate to you as commission members. Any questions about the Ethics Act? All right, hearing none. Also related to ethics, but slightly different, is the conflict of interest. And Anchorage Municipal Code is pretty specific about conflict of interest. No person shall serve on a board or commission or as an administrative official empowered to conduct an administrative hearing or quasi-judicial proceeding if, and that is related to you, that person or a member of their immediate family has a measurable financial interest in any properly affected by the application or appeal. The person or member of their immediate family could foreseeably profit in any material way, or that person would be faced with a violation of the ethics code. This is Anchorage's definition of a conflict of interest. So it's primarily about the ethics code and financial gain. So what about disclosure? What do you do if you think maybe there's a decision on the table that might relate to that you might actually benefit from financially? No commission member shall participate in any decision in which the commission determines that either the member has a conflict of interest or the member has a personal interest or involvement in the case that might prevent them from fairly evaluating the case. Basically, the commission will determine whether or not they will participate in that matter. And I'm going to kind of go through a screen of how that happens. I do want to emphasize at the end, no member shall be excused from participation solely on the basis of personal familiarity with the case or parties involved. Anchorage isn't that big of a town, and you're on the commissions you're on for a reason. You're probably familiar with a lot of the things that come before you. That does not automatically create a conflict of interest. So further disclosure information, but I actually want to get into how you deal with this. Guiding principles. If you are, hearing something in your discussion, or you're going to be deciding something that you're really not sure about, you think that maybe your company might financially gain, or it somehow relates to you financially, in my opinion, just go ahead and declare it. You can even say when you declare it, hey, I'm not really sure this is actually a conflict of interest, but I want full disclosure here, so I'm going to go ahead and declare this. And then the commission is going to decide whether or not that's actually a conflict of interest. Oh, I have an example from the Anchorage Planning Commission. I'm sorry, it's not specific to your commissions. So say the Anchorage Planning Commission is a 6-member commission. We're just going to pretend, and they are voting on whether to rezone a residential area to commercial. One member has a home in that area, and they're not sure whether that's a conflict of interest. So they go ahead and say, conflict? My home is inside of that area. Do I have a conflict of interest? I'm going to go ahead and declare that. And then the commission is going to decide by a vote. There can be a discussion before you decide. You can discuss the matter and whether or not there really is any financial conflict of interest in there, any ethics conflicts, and then the commission's going to vote and decide on that. Okay, any questions about that? Yeah, please.
So this is Tomasz. I just quick question. This is procedural. In the past, it has been an issue whether we should make that determination by motion. And since it is a motion, then it can be coming from the chair. Talk about that process, please.
Coming from the chair. Oh, like there needs to be a motion to vote on whether there's a conflict?
Yeah, we have to, if we have to make the decision on the commission, does it have to be a formal motion, or the chair can go ahead and poll the members?
You know, I've never had that question. I'm not really sure, to tell you the truth. I mean, it is a matter that needs a vote regardless of whether anyone motions and seconds it. So I'm not sure what you would, if it was a requirement that you had a motion, I'm not sure how you would proceed if no one motioned. You would still have to vote on it. So I guess that leaves me thinking maybe a motion's not necessary, but I might have to look at I have my Robert's Rules of Order right here. I might have to take a look at that in order to answer that question. Yeah, really good, interesting question. I like it when I get new questions I've never gotten before. Any other questions about that process? Right. I even had a question slide right there because I frequently do get questions at that point. So that is conflict of interest. Ex parte contact, just to be clear, is not actually conflict of interest. It's something separate. So ex parte contact is covered in your municipal code. It's 360-065. I do encourage you to give that a read. But basically, while acting in your capacity, you shall be impartial in all matters, both in fact and in appearance. And that's really important, appearance. No member of any board or commission or any official shall receive or otherwise engage in ex parte communications with the appellant, applicant, or other parties adversely affected by the appeal or application, or members of the public concerning the appeal, basically anyone. The section does not deem, the section shall not be deemed to prevent those charged with conducting an administrative hearing or quasi-judicial procedure from discussing matters related to the appeal among themselves or to prohibit communications between staff. What this comes down to, in short, is if someone comes up to you about a decision that you're making and says, I want to talk to you about this thing, that could potentially be an ex parte contact. That's what we're talking about, in short. So again, we get into disclosures. The biggest thing there is you just need to disclose it. So, I don't have that slide I usually have here about how to go about disclosing it. I encourage you to read Anchorage Municipal Code on this matter as well. But if someone does approach you with information, what you really need to do is say, you know what, I think the whole commission needs to hear about this. So I would really like you to come to the next commission meeting and talk with the whole commission about this. I've certainly seen instances where the person says, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So give them options. Okay, do you want to put it in writing? And I can bring that to the commission. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that either. Usually someone will do one of those two things. If they won't do that either, then you need to bring that information to the commission yourself. You need to bring the information, and it's actually specific in here. You also need to reveal where you got the information. So people don't get to rock up to you as commission members and say, I'm an anonymous source. Nope, that's not a thing. That is an ex parte contact. You need to be able to share that information. Everyone needs to have that same information. Okay. Does that come up for you much on your commissions? Do you have any questions about that?
Hi, this is David. I'm just curious, do you think, and you mentioned several options there, if someone comes up to you with information, well, what about just directing it to the municipal staff or the commission staff?
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, go give it to this guy.
Absolutely, that's an option too. Yeah. You can point them directly to a staff member, and then the staff member can share that with the commission. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, there are lots of options. And I think I've talked to, council members and commissioners who kind of froze in that situation and were like, I think I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm not sure what to do. Really, the biggest thing is just to kind of politely stop the conversation and say, what you're saying is really important to me, but I need the whole commission to hear it. So let's talk about your options for doing that. All right, that's ex parte contact. That's the nitty gritty wordy stuff. We can get into the fun stuff now. So open meetings, this gets into the kind of the procedure and the flow of information that you all were talking about at the introduction. So hopefully we're kind of getting to the questions and the things that you guys wanted to learn about. So the Open Meetings Act is an Alaska statute. It dictates that all members of a governing body of a public entity of the state are open to the public, and local governments are subdivisions of the state, and your commissions are part of that local government. So that's why this relates to you. So the Open Meetings Act effectively ensures public participation. It mandates that all meetings of the governmental body be public. It is meant to be broadly interpreted. So I frequently hear, is this OMA related? And my first thought is usually probably, but let's talk it out. So who is covered? Public entities and governmental bodies are covered. Who is not covered is individuals, employees and staff. That is significant. Your employees and staff can conduct their business. That is not Open Meetings Act violation. Membership organizations, private corporations, U.S. government, and Native entities are not covered by OMA. So OMA, Open Meetings Act, aids the people's business. It ensures that the people do not yield their sovereignty. Representatives do not decide what is good for the public to know and what is not. They have a right to remain informed. They have a right to be heard, and reasonable notice and opportunity to attend. And we're going to get into the nitty gritty of a couple of those things. Specifically, reasonable notice means reasonable public notice shall be given for all meetings. Notice has to have a date, a time, and a place. At least 24 hours notice, but we're going to get to that in a moment. It needs to be posted in at least 3 public places, but really where it needs to be posted is in all the places that all of your postings usually go. It just needs to be regular places. So if you have 20 places that you post, then you have to post in 20 places. Because people need to know, I will go to this website and know whether or not there is a meeting and when the meeting is. They need to know where they can consistently go to get that information. Notice can be in print or in broadcast. It just has to be consistent. So notice requirements specifically for regular meetings, Open Meetings Act says at least 5 days. For special meetings, Anchorage specifically says at least 24 hours. For emergency meetings, that's 24 hours or less, but it's very narrow what can be an emergency meeting. And then work sessions, again, at least 24 hours, and that's according to Open Meetings Act. But Open Meetings Act court rulings have indicated that in some cases, reasonable notice may be longer. I've even seen the court decide several months was necessary for reasonable notice, that it was just a matter that needed a lot of notice for people to be able to get informed, to be able to attend the meeting, to be able to be heard. So it really depends on what matter you're talking about. And then some particulars on the Open Meetings Act. A serial communication is when I call Tim and tell him something, and then Tim calls David and tells him something, and David calls Beth and tells Beth something. We're all in the commission. That's a serial communication now. Members of the commission have now shared this information that has not been shared to the public. That is a serial communication, and it could be seen as a violation of the Open Meetings Act. A lot of this stuff, I'm going to say it could be seen as it's really about your image. It's really about the perception. So if that kind of serial communication has often accidentally happened, we really recommend that someone in that string say, okay, I think we need to take this to the whole commission in a public meeting with the public present. Again, just like the other things we talked about so far, it's pretty easy to fix, pretty easy to correct. You just take it to the public meeting. polling of council members or commissioners. So that's when, for instance, a staff member calls each commissioner and says, how are you going to vote on this? How do you vote on this? How do you vote on this? That is polling, and that is prohibited in Alaska. Those decisions, those votes have to take place in a public meeting. And I've seen that a lot, especially in smaller communities when they're struggling to get all the commission or all the council members together at the same time. They'll say, well, can we just poll them to pass this resolution? And the answer is that is a violation of Open Meetings Act. Okay. Email correspondences between council members, not explicitly prohibited, but it's just something to be careful about. Say you get an email, you know, emails were going out inviting everybody to this meeting. If someone hit reply all and said, hey, let's type a little bit here and talk about this matter that's before us. Nope. Now you're basically having, you know, a form of a serial communication. That conversation really needs to take place in the public forum. So I actually have city clerks that when they send an email out to council members, they will say, do not hit reply all, because it's their way of saying, email is not a way for us to have this discussion. It has to happen in a public forum. David?
Yeah, I just had a question.
Yeah.
Okay, like as chair, say I just want to make sure everyone knows an important issue is coming up, and you know, generally, hey, we've got this important issue, please show up. I could probably, I'm assuming I can probably send out a email, but I'm not sure, but to broadcast to everybody or not. Or usually I would just ask staff to do that and say, hey, you know. But the other question is, which is what if I call members individually and say, hey, there's an important issue coming up. You know, this is a couple of points I'd like you to think about. Thank you very much. Call the next person. Hey, there's an. So does that become a problem?
I mean, it seems like it shouldn't. You know, it's the kind of thing that, like, if it went to court, if it wasn't a big deal, it probably wouldn't be a problem for you. However, I really recommend against it. Simply because of, again, the perception of it, that, oh, well, you were having conversations without the public involved, without being in a public meeting. So I would really recommend instead going with, you mentioned having the staff send something out. It can be a part of kind of your meeting packet before the meeting. So you could email the staff and say, hey, I'd really like you to send out these bullet points for everybody to think about leading up to the meeting. And that kind of becomes a part of the correspondences that would be shared in the full public meeting. The staff is a really good way to kind of buffer you and prevent you accidentally violating the Open Meetings Act. Yeah, thank you. Really good question. Yeah. Oh, and actually that kind of addressed my next topic, which was email correspondences with staff members. That just talking with staff is a really good way to make sure everybody gets the information they need without violating Open Meetings Act. We have a document, and this is getting a little bit older now. I want to say it's something like 15 years old now, but it's called the Alaska Open Meetings Law. And it's very long. It will put you to sleep. It's great for that if you're having a hard time sleeping. But I've actually read it something like 10 times now. It's incredibly helpful if you have a lot of questions about the Open Meetings Act. It defines the things we're talking about, and then it also actually incorporates court cases. So it can talk about, this is how the court has interpreted this. The court hasn't really addressed that. So it's really helpful if you have a lot of questions about Open Meetings Act. I do recommend it. And any other questions on Open Meetings Act? None so far. Okay. So executive sessions are actually also covered in the Open Meetings Act. Executive sessions take place within your meeting, within the commission meeting. They are not a separate meeting. They actually happen within the commission's meeting. And that's important for reasons I'll be bringing up shortly. They must begin and end in a public meeting. So say you're just having a regular meeting and at one point you call to go into executive session. Once you're done with the executive session, you actually need to invite the public back in at that point before you close out the full meeting. In my experience, usually the public's, I mean, if it's something that you weren't going to decide anything on, the public's often not even there anymore. But the reason that's really important is because you can't actually make decisions in the executive session. So by inviting the public back in, you're saying, okay, now we're going to make decisions based on all the information we have. Public is only temporarily excluded due to the subject matter, which we'll discuss in a second. No action can be taken and only certain topics can be discussed. Those topics are matters that will adversely financially impact the municipality, matters that will harm someone's reputation or character. And specifically about the reputation and character one, I don't know if this ever comes up for you guys, but you actually need to inform that person that they will be discussed ahead of time, and they have a right to say if they want that discussion to take place in an open meeting. So that's why it's important to inform them ahead of time, and then they get to decide. They do not necessarily have a right to be in the executive session. You can invite them in if you need information, but they do get to decide, nope, I want this discussion to take place in public. So you need to inform them ahead of time so they can make that decision. Any matter that is required to be confidential for any reason, any confidential records, and then any matter of attorney-client privilege. And earlier I said you can't make decisions inside of the meeting. There are some exceptions to that have to do with giving directives to your attorney. I think there's stuff about giving directions to something about unions. I can't remember what it was exactly, but that came out of a court case at one point. But pretty much anything else that you're talking about in an executive session, you can't actually make a final decision about that in the executive session. That has to happen in the public meeting. So any questions about executive sessions? Can I just get like a yes or no? Do you ever have executive sessions? Is it something that comes up for you guys?
Not
Rarely.
Not that I recall on the advisory commission, natural resources, watershed.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
This is Tomasz. I have a question about the same process. Executive session. Is the member going to be able to call one by motion, or is that I guess a duty of the chairperson to declare it?
Thank you for that question. So this is a motion related thing. So this is in order to go into an executive session, you're going to want someone to I motion to go into executive session. Motion is seconded. Maybe there's even a discussion about whether or not an executive session is appropriate at this time. And then you're going to vote on whether to go into the executive session. And then the same process when you're coming out of the executive session. Yeah. Okay, good questions. Parliamentary procedures. This is getting into the fun stuff. And like I said, I do have this Robert's Rule of Order behind me. I have, and I don't know, your staff might have this, but there's the full book, which is thick with very tiny letters. There's also what I really like is this in brief. It kind of addresses things a little bit more hands-on. I find it to be a little bit more helpful, and the print is bigger, so it's easier to read. I do recommend if you find yourselves having a lot of parliamentary procedure issues, I do recommend picking up one of these two books. They're very helpful. I am not an expert on parliamentary procedure, but I kind of know where to find things. So the why bother of parliamentary procedure is basically it is a structure for debate, right? It ensures that things are discussed one thing at a time. It ensures there's a fair and impartial forum, and it ensures the will of the majority, but the rights of the minority. And that's really a crucial piece. Honestly, I've definitely worked with commissions and councils that were very small and informal, and they felt comfortable not really structuring things very strictly. But what would frequently happen, and I'm not mad at them for that or anything, but every once in a while, what would happen is they would say, we're just really having a hard time running our meeting. We have a lot of people interrupting, topics are all over the place. And I would say, why don't I come out and give you a presentation on parliamentary procedure? Maybe we need to tighten this down and really get strict about parliamentary procedure. Maybe you can loosen again in the future if things get more comfortable and, less tense or less just chaotic. But parliamentary procedure is really the way to tighten in on that if you're having a hard time with meetings. And your municipal code actually does require that you follow it. So in your case, I'm kind of talking about other entities that might sort of opt in or out of it, depending on whether they need to, but in your case, you really need to be following it. Okay. So Robert's Rules of Order specifically is all about the motions, how they're made, how they're disposed of, what types of motions there are, the relationship between the motions. Motions are proposals that a group takes certain actions. They are classified into 4 types. Those types are main motions, subsidiary motions, privileged motions, and incidental motions. There actually are some other more types of motions, but these are kind of the ones you're really going to be dealing with regularly in your meetings. So main motions are motions that bring business before the council. And I'm going to go through and actually give examples of each of these. So that's really the initial action is the main motion. It is to consider a new law, to adopt a resolution, to amend a city code. A subsidiary motion is a motion to modify or dispose of the main motion. Always remember the subsidiary motion is about a main motion. So it's a motion to amend the main motion, to postpone the main motion, to lay it on the table, to refer it to a committee, but it's all about that main motion. Motion deals with matters of immediate importance. So it's a motion to adjourn because we just had an earthquake, or a motion to take a recess, to call for the orders of the day, which I'll discuss later what that's about, to raise questions of privilege. These are more, privileged motions are really more about the people involved in the body and the process. It's not really about the actions, it's more about the process of what's going on here. Incidental motions deal with questions of procedure and are unrelated to the other motions on the table. So they're a motion to rise to order. Again, I'll kind of define these later. A motion to rise to a parliamentary inquiry, to withdraw another motion, or to suspend the rules. And we'll get into those a little bit later. But there is an important order of procedure when you have motions. Main motion, let's say, is I motion to eat ice cream. Someone else pops up and says, I motion to amend the main motion to specify eating chocolate ice cream. It's about the main motion. That's why it's subsidiary. Then someone else pipes up and says, I motion to adjourn for lunch. That's a privileged motion because that's about the body. It's about the people and the procedure that you're going through. So the order of precedence is always privileged motions need to be addressed first. You now have 3 motions on the table. Now you're typically going to have a clerk or someone in your meeting that's taking minutes throughout all of this. And they're kind of frantically typing or writing out all of these motions, and they now have 3 motions on the table. So first you have to address that privileged motion. That might involve having a discussion. Of course, you need it seconded. I haven't mentioned that, but you do need it seconded in order for that to even be on the table. But let's say all of these did get seconded. Privileged motion, are we going to adjourn to eat lunch? And everyone's like, no, it's only 11 o'clock. We're going to move on here. Okay, everyone voted no on that one. Now we still need to address the subsidiary motion. And remembering that whether or not you motion to amend the main motion has nothing to do with whether or not the main motion actually passes. It's just whether to amend that main motion. So let's say you have a discussion and decide not to amend it to specify chocolate. You are finally back down to your motion to eat ice cream. That's that order of precedence. And this is where having someone taking notes is really important because the chair can very easily lose track of what motion we're on. Can just sort of turn to the note taker and say, where are we on the motions here? And get that direction. So the process for making the motion, a member seeks recognition from the chair. Mr. Chairman. The member is recognized by the chair and has the floor. Has the floor is a technical term. Councilmember Jane. And Jane makes the motion. I move to eat ice cream. All right, that motion is seconded by another member. The chair restates the motion to the body. And of course, sometimes the note taker might actually ask the note taker to state the motion, because sometimes the motion can be very long. Motion to eat ice cream. Is there any discussion? And now the council gets to debate that motion. Ice cream is delicious. I don't like ice cream. I'm lactose intolerant. The debate happens. The council votes on the motion. And then the chair announces the result. The motion is carried. And of course, if we have those subsidiary motions in there, they have to get addressed before we finally get to the end. Right. Any questions about that process before we move on to some particulars? All right. Just raise a question of privilege. Questions related to the rights and privileges of the assembly or the individual. Includes matters of comfort, amplification, or safety. Matters of urgency. My favorite example of this is actually a council member was sitting and there was a fan. It was I was in this meeting. It was very, very warm in this room. So there was a fan running, but the fan was making it so the council member couldn't hear what anyone else was saying. That was raising a question of privilege. We really can't move on until we can make sure this council member can hear what's happening. Really need to be able to hear everything. So that needs to get addressed first. They got to move the fan, they got to turn it off, whatever it is, before we can discuss our motions, before we can do anything else. That is why that is a privilege motion. Order is intended to correct a breach in the rules. It's a tool for ensuring rules and laws are being followed, both parliamentary and otherwise. It is not intended to end a debate, but to bring the debate into accordance with parliamentary procedures. And I have actually seen points of order be used to kind of stop a conversation from happening, and that is very important that that not happen. It's important that the conversation happen in line with the rules, but a point of order shouldn't be used to stop that conversation from happening. Okay.
Question, Thomas.
Yeah.
When you have a point of order, generally people are just emotional enough to yell it. Do you have to give the floor to the person to make the point of order as the chair?
I mean, technically you need to, because maybe there is actually a valid point of order there. So you do need to hear that out. But after dealing with that point of order or saying, nope, that's not a thing, you do need to get back to the conversation. So whatever, you need to do to correct the process or to not correct the process. Thanks, Amy. You do continue the conversation afterwards. Okay. But it is a privileged motion, so it does need to get dealt with first. Suspend the rules. Temporarily set aside rules of the assembly. They're primarily used to take up a particular item of business out of the regular agenda order. I just saw someone who had to step out of the meeting. That's a perfect example. Sometimes someone's like, I got to run to catch a plane, but I was here to share this important information with you, and maybe you need to take things out of order in order to let that person speak, even though their item's actually later on in the agenda. It's that kind of stuff. Just have to be careful about making sure that the rights of the minority are still respected. All those fundamental rules are still respected, but it can be a really handy tool. And then addressing the chair. Again, typically how formal you have to be about this is just going to depend on your own commission and how it's running. But usually you're going to address the chair directly, Mr. Chairman or Madam Chairman. Members may speak after the chair has assigned them the floor, and this is how we ensure only one person is speaking at a time. And it's intended to ensure that only one person is speaking at a time and that everyone has an opportunity to speak. So that is parliamentary procedure. Do I have any questions about parliamentary procedure? I'm actually at the end, even though I still have half an hour. So lots of time for questions if you have any.
Looks like it's me again, Tomasz. Just a quick, I will stop asking questions, but since this is the day for it, I will use the opportunity. So here is another question about suspending the rules. Can you maybe share with us an example, hopefully a real one, where suspending the rules was applied? Because I get suspending the rules generally is, as in my experience, it's about agenda, like order of agenda. But we do deal with the order of agenda up front on most meetings. So I wonder what examples would you bring besides that?
Besides changing the agenda, that's actually the exact place where I've seen it used the most, is to change the order of the agenda. And I've seen it happen both at the beginning of the meeting and later on in a meeting. Say a meeting went longer than expected. And I mean, that's where I saw it was an individual actually did need to go catch a plane out of the village and needed to be, needed to talk before they left. So you can actually do that, change the order of the agenda even while into the meeting if you need to, as long as we're ensuring that we're, respecting the fundamental rules.
It just sounds a little bit ominous when you say you set aside the rules. Like, are we setting aside all rules and it's martial law now? I mean, that would be a good way to perhaps help me here.
And that's where that ensuring the fundamental rules is absolutely vital here. You shouldn't be suspending the rules just so that people can start yelling at each other. That's not an appropriate. We're disrespecting the fundamental rules now at this point. Let's see, another example might be like work sessions. I don't know if you use Robert's Rules of Order when you have work sessions, but a lot of entities will suspend the rules of, addressing the chair, kind of that formality in a work session, just so that they can kind of have more free flow of information and discussion. I wouldn't do that in an official meeting, in like a regular meeting or a special meeting. But I think that kind of flexibility to have a discussion is really appropriate in a work session. That might be another example, if that helps.
Yeah, can I ask a question? I might have missed it. How do you affect the suspension of the rules? Is it a motion? I move to suspend the rules? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's going to be another motion that needs to be seconded, that needs to be voted on. A motion to, change the order of the agenda in order to hear such and such person before they have to leave. I second that motion. Yep.
Generally, one view of the chair as the facilitator. Can the chair move to suspend the rules?
Typically, that's not seen as terribly kosher in meetings, but I've definitely worked with entities that decided that the chair could make motions. So I don't think that Robert's Rules is crazy about that. There are in Robert's Rules, there are actually specific things that chairs can do. So if you're curious about that, I might recommend picking it up. Again, I find this one to be a little bit easier to read, and you can probably just find information online about what motions, if you just Google what motions can a chair make according to Robert's Rules of Order, you might get some really good information. Yeah, a lot of the universities put together cheat sheets about things like that. I've definitely worked with entities that decided that they would just let the chair make motions, but I don't think that's in accordance. Yeah, really good questions. Anyone else? Any other questions or any other topics that you want to cover while we're here?
Yeah, this is Tim. Can you talk a little bit about the commission interacting with staff and members of the public? I'm just, because I tend to do this. It's like, oh, I have a, I'm staff, so I'm not on the commission, but I think, oh, I have some information that could help with that. And
yeah,
is that so? What about the rules of recognizing staff members or even members of the public? Because I know in the Geotechnical Commission, they have a time set aside for public to come and talk. Usually we don't have many people in the public there, but anyway.
Right. That is a really good point. And a lot of entities I've worked with will actually have a place in their agenda. Of course, you have the opportunity for the public to speak, but we'll actually have a specific place in the agenda for staff reports. And you typically think of that as like a written report and maybe a Q&A following the written report, but that is also an opportunity for other staff members to share information you might have. So you might, you know, if the staff report is provided by one specific staff member, you might go to them and say, hey, can you share this information in your staff report? Or you might say, hey, can I just speak up during the staff report portion of the meeting? And then you'll do kind of the same as everyone else does in terms of getting recognition from the chair and then sharing your information. So I would say whether you do it through the written report or kind of verbally in the meeting, talk to the other staff, talk to the chair about how they prefer that happen. I tend to really like things be in writing. If you knew about it ahead of time, to try to get it in writing in the staff report. And that way the commission has a chance to read over it, and then in the meeting has a chance to ask you questions. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will let you all go 20 minutes early. Thank you so much for your attention. Oh, I should have had it on the next slide here so that you can get my contact information. Please feel free to contact me anytime. I'm always happy to answer other questions, to get you some of the resources that I've talked about here. Yeah, and share my information with others. That's helpful. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, thanks a lot, Lynn. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Carrie. Really appreciate everyone coming along.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Cody.